Hey there, this is Coach Bill again. And I'm going to finish out this Yoga Nidra training, the modules themselves, with this final one. Now, after this module, I'll have some recordings of a few different versions of Yoga Nidra to add to your practice. I'm going to send you, in your binder, you'll have some scripts. So while this might be the last module, there's more to come after this. But this is the last module in the training. So just stick with me a moment and I'll run us through this. So as we move into this final section, we're going to talk about how we can bring some externalized awareness into our practice, into the Nidra. I was so uh, connected to this practice when I first began studying it, while at the same time I was studying sound and vibration. And I felt a real connection to how we can combine the two practices of sound Nidra, is what we call it. So, how do we introduce sound into a yoga nidra? Well, there are a lot of different ways we can do it. A sound that we can use can be the environment that we're in. If we're doing a yoga nidra where we're out in nature, we can let nature sounds just be that externalized awareness. The biggest part of sound and how it keeps us connected into a nidra comes from the guide, the person guiding the yoga nidra. That externalized sound comes from the voice. The voice of the practitioner guiding your class or your individual through the session is what is keeping the client connected, keeping them grounded and present. Because without that connection, they would drift off, maybe drift into a trance, maybe let their imagination get take them away from the practice. Sometimes they drift deeper into sleep, dropping below that sheath of awareness into a space of trance or sleep, going into that unconscious space. So the sound in and of itself as a guide is what's really important. That's why we keep moving. When I teach meditation, guided meditation to meditation teachers and coaches, we talk about creating some space for silence. You can do a meditation where you're guiding and then offer a couple minutes of silence. In Yoga Nidra, we don't want to do that too often because in that silence, especially in those deep energetic layers, the mind will drift away. We need to use the voice and that externalized awareness to keep the client present. But we can do that with sound as well. Having the client connect to the sounds of the space that they're in is so important. So perhaps there's the humming of an air conditioning. Perhaps there is traffic on the street outside. Perhaps it's a rainy day and you bring the awareness to the fact that it's raining. Once you bring it into their awareness and they accept that it's there, it falls away, but it doesn't disappear. It keeps them connected. And that's what the voice does as you're guiding your client through the session. So it's important to remember that unlike a lot of other meditative practices, silence isn't always that helpful. There are moments when you want to add that long pause, maybe a few moments, maybe 30 seconds. But I believe in that 30 seconds, I might lose a client. They might drift away. Now, they will come back as soon as you start speaking again, but we want to keep them connected to the energetic layers that we're moving them through. Generally, I offer that space of silence in that moment where I connect to the heart's deepest intentions. When I lead them to that place where perhaps I'll say something now that you're totally relaxed and in that space of bliss, listen to the whispers of your heart. And I'll let that silence be filled with the intentions of the heart. But I don't stay there too long. Because if I do, sometimes the client will start judging. Is that what they're supposed to be feeling? How come I'm not feeling it? I wonder if everybody's feeling it the same way, right? All these questions start to come up because that's the way the mind works. It wants to distract us. So we keep moving and we bring them back. But again, this externalized awareness can be a great tool. And if you're a sound practitioner, a sound healer, or somebody who uses singing bowls or other instruments in their meditative practices, we can introduce this. Now, most of the time, we would introduce sound on the return after we've gone through all those layers, after we've connected to that bliss state, after we've sunk and connected to that intentional space. Then perhaps we start guiding them back in and introduce a singing heart bowl or introduce a Himalayan bowl or introduce the sound of a flute or a chime softly. You wouldn't want to throw in the sound of a gong or something that's going to be abrasive, something that's gentle. And then we can use that to carry them back. And that's a beautiful thing to do. Sometimes we can change the music. Maybe if we're writing, if we're filling a meditative yoga nidra script with sound, and we create a playlist, and we can imagine those songs that are playing are connecting those energetic layers. So on the return, we change the sound. Oftentimes, I like to use the sound of waves because so many times my visualization, I live in Florida, so it's kind of natural for me, is to visualize the beach, walking on the beach or sitting on the beach or floating in a boat on the ocean or whatever it is. But a lot of times when I get through that bliss layer and I start the return, I'll shift the music from the sound of waves to something else, something that's more hmm, connected to bring them back up a couple of layers. I've experimented with this so many different ways. And as a sound healing practitioner, as a teacher of sound meditation, I created this sound nidra from my perspective. By the way I play my bowls and the other instruments that I use, I envision and I have the intention of carrying my clients through a yoga nidra structure with just sound. And you have to understand how it works, but it works in the same way. I can use the sound to connect to the physical layer. I can use the sound to connect to the different energetic layers as we go through. And as we get to that bliss layer, I can use a soft sound or something deep and resonant to have the client drop deep down. It's difficult for me to explain, just like everything in Yoga Nidra, until it's experienced. But most sound sessions that I hold now, when I'm working with a group or an individual, I'm doing a sound Nidra. I'm envisioning carrying my clients through all those different energetic layers and what sound is going to get them there and what sound's going to bring them back. So, sound in Yoga Nidra is part of the practice. Again, we don't want to create this perfect bubble of silence because that can be uncomfortable. That can be hard to achieve. So, adding sound brings that externalized awareness into it. However, you choose to do it, experiment with it and see how it works. Some of the other different things we can bring into Yoga Nidra, we can bring a practice of chakra into it. I'm gonna have a recording of a chakra nidra attached to this training. Just experience it. Again, it could be something that you invite in the chakra connection as you're doing a rotation of consciousness. So imagine as I'm starting that rotation of consciousness, instead of starting like on the right thumb or on the top or on the right foot, maybe I start at the crown of the head. Bring your awareness to the crown and then slowly move down to your third eye and just to guide them through the chakra as I do so. We can use Yoga Nidra as a tool to help our clients fall asleep. It's simple. We lead them into that deep layer of bliss and we leave them there through that relaxation. When you get into that space where you're just going to end the session in that space of bliss, You have to get out of your head the fact that maybe the client won't wake up. They're always going to be in that space of bliss. Well, wouldn't that be wonderful? But the truth is the mind is self-regulating and it will bring you back up. It will bring the client back up when it's time. But you set them up for success and you say, this is a sleep nidra. I'm going to guide you to a deep space of bliss, and then I'm going to guide you into that place where you fall into that place of sleep. We can use yoga nidra for stress reduction and for kids, as explained in other modules. But there are so many other ways and things we can bring into this beautiful practice of nidra. There are so many different faces and there's so many different ways it's explained. So keep this in mind. When we put this training together, took all the experience that we've had in holding nidra sessions for groups and for clients individually. We've experimented with all the different ways that it works. We've come from our hearts. We put our best foot forward and we gave you the information that we thought would be best. Now, you could go study from someone else and they're going to put their perspective on it, and you can go study from someone else and they'll put theirs on it. It's like this in everything we do when it comes to the practice of mindfulness and meditation and healing. Everybody's got their perspective. And the beautiful thing about that, with an open mind, we should never judge somebody's training as right or wrong. If they're training from the heart, if they're doing it with the right intention, what we should do as clients is, as students, is always be a student. Always be a student. Every single time I lead a class, every single time I do a session, I do it from that place of being a student. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to discover what works and what doesn't work, what people resonate with and don't. I'm not going to judge myself too harshly because this client said they didn't get it. They weren't in the place maybe to get it at this time. Maybe their headspace was wrong. I'm not going to let myself be carried away by a judgment of somebody saying, well, that's not how I experienced yoga nidra before. Well, that's great. You experienced something different. As teachers and practitioners in this field, we should open ourselves up to always be authentic and real, to take all the information in that we can absorb and decide what we're going to do with it. And if we lead a session from a heartfelt place of intention, if my intention in a yoga nidra is to connect our client to a bit of loving kindness, then put it out there. If it's to heal from trauma or pain, put it out there. If it's to help our clients relieve stress or anxiety, put it out there. The ones who are ready to receive will receive. And that's what's important. I'm holding space. I'm doing my best. But I'm always learning, and I'm always willing to change. I want to discover new ways to teach this, to discover it, to share it. That's what's beautiful about these practices, these wisdom practices that have been around for centuries, but they're always changing, all these different perspectives. What I really focus on in everything I teach, whether I'm teaching sound meditation, whether I'm teaching yoga nidra, whether I'm certifying life coaches or meditation teachers, let go of the dogma. Everything I write, it's not a rule book. Everything I read, I don't see it as a rule book. I see it as suggestions. I see it as experiences. I am sharing my experience with you, my experience and how this practice works with others. Do with it what you will, but try to keep yourself from judging. So if you go take a study from someone else, absorb that, understand that, recognize where it's coming from. Everything that a teacher teaches, all of these gifts that we share, at the foundation of it all, they come from a place of love. So, from this moment forward, you have all the information that you need to continue this practice, but it takes practice. I suggest, as you continue on and you read the things that I've attached to this afterwards, the different scripts and yoga nidras that I'm going to share with you, take that information, put it in this big pot and start to stir it. I'm from South Louisiana, and we have this beautiful meal we call gumbo. And gumbo is really a result, and you'll see that there are different versions depending on what part of the state you go to. So, because we have different ingredients. But really, gumbo is all about throwing all these different ingredients and making this beautiful meal from a place of love. So, we have created this pot. We've given you all this information. And now it's up to you to start stirring it and let the stuff rise to the surface to create your beautiful gift, your gumbo. So I appreciate the time that you've shared with me in discovering this. And as I said, there'll be some other information that's attached to this training. I encourage you to practice, to read some of those scripts that we share with you, to start creating your own, to record yourself a few times. If you feel that you would like some feedback on it, send me a copy of that script or your recording, and I will take the time to listen to it and give you some constructive feedback. I love doing that. So if you choose to do that, send that to my email at meditateyou@gmail.com and I'll receive it. Now, I might not get to it the same day you send it to me, but I will. And when I do, I'll give you the feedback, encourage you to keep trying. One of the things I find that my clients and the students I teach struggle with is the fact that they want to be ready, 100% ready. They're looking for perfection. But perfection is relative, right? The perfect yoga nidra for you is different than the perfect yoga nidra for me because this is my practice and I share it in the way that I choose to. If you're waiting for that perfect version, you're going to be waiting a long time because our mind likes to overthink and we like to judge ourselves. So just do it. Just start practicing it. Just start sharing it. If you're going to do this as a part of your practice and you're going to make money from it, start sharing it with friends first. Start sharing it with people that you know. Get their feedback and then move forward. You choose how you're going to move your path forward, but trust me, you have all that you need to succeed. You just have to find that strength and that confidence within. Find that voice. Record yourself and listen back. I have a very meditative voice, but I haven't always spoken from that place. I used to speak more nasally. I used to speak higher up and a little faster. I used to come talk like this. But through practice and listening to myself, I drop my voice and I speak from here now. Through meditation, you find that meditation voice a little bit deeper, quite a bit stronger, with confidence. It comes through practice. What you practice grows stronger. So I encourage you to practice and practice and practice and share, share, and share. Because what's the good in having all this wisdom? What's the good in having this passion for a practice if you're not going to share it? So it's been my honor to share this training with you. And it will be my honor to see you out in the world sharing this. With every drop of water into the bucket, those ripples spread across the world. This is why I love teaching what I do. Because everyone who takes this practice is like a pebble dropping into that beautiful lake of humanity, and the ripples spread out. So go out and share this practice. Thank you. I'm Coach Bill. Have a great